Commissioner Bowen.
Here.
Commissioner Gregg.
Here.
Commissioner Grabman.
Here.
Vice Chair Maya.
Here.
And Chair Glazier.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Director Hastert, do we have any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
All right. It's duly noted that on Thursday, March 13th, 2025 at 5 p.m., the Airport Commission Secretary duly posted this agenda on the bulletin board at the Airport Administration Building. Mo, do we have any public comment?
I do not have any.
No slips. Anybody? Any takers? All right. Very good. Liaison reports. Mr. Friedman, Councilman Friedman.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another commission meeting. Don't have much. We've started the budget process, so the airport has presented initially just the goals of the next coming year and looking back at last year. But we're going to have at the end of April, the budget will be released. And that's what we're all hands on deck right now on all the budgets. And we had the capital improvement as well that came to council last week. So that's where we're at.
Thank you very much for the update. This time, call on Director Hastert for the director's report.
Thank you, Chair Glazier. As Councilmember Friedman mentioned, the budget will be released in April, so we will be bringing that forward to the commission as well once the city manager releases her whole budget. We're holding off until that point. The FBO RFP update to the city council will be on April the 8th. And so hopefully not too long following that meeting, we will be able to issue the RFP, at least for the east site, and keep that moving forward. And then hopefully shortly the west site to follow along, keeping that phased so that we're not doing construction on both of them at the same time. And also it might be an easier selection looking at the west site FBO because knowing who was selected for the first one might factor into what we're looking at for the second one. So encourage anybody who's interested to provide any comment with public or FBOs to attend that meeting, or you can actually attend virtually and give public comment as well. There was I guess I'll stick with the good news first. Pilot controlled lighting, I have just been informed, is ready to go at the flip of a switch. So we will be coordinating some communications and making that change. So that will allow for the pilots, after the tower closes, to adjust the brightness of the lighting system, as well as save on our energy costs by the lights being off in the middle of the night when they're not actually being used. We have had some changes to our approaches, and so I know Vice Chair Maya had asked a question of me to bring it up to the group, which I appreciate. One of them I was not actually aware of until it was recently raised, but we have our minimums for the ILS have been raised, and that was a result primarily of some trees that had grown into the approach. We, as the airport, worked with the property owner and had those trees removed very quickly. Unfortunately, the FAA process to redesign approaches moves on, and even though it hadn't been published yet, was published with new minimums that are not good for getting into the airport during foggy weather. Initially, we had heard that they plan to update the minimums in April of 2026. That has since, because of pressure been applied, moved up to October of 2025. We are still applying pressure and seeing what we can do to have that moved up even sooner, but not good news. The other thing that was new to me, and thank you, Levi, for pointing it out, and the tower filled me in on what was going on, is we have an overlay approach, a GPS overlay to the VOR approach, and that is gone. And apparently that is nationwide. They're doing away with overlay approaches. And because they haven't finished the design for a standalone GPS approach, which they are working on, that just went away with nothing to be replaced. And then the third thing is apparently on the VOR approach, it's listed as not available at night. And that was a mistake. And so the tower is working with the approach design team with the FAA to issue a NOTAM to enable people to use the VOR approach at night as well. So that's a lot of changes going on with the approaches, not good at all, but we're working to pressure to try to get that back to at least where we were before, and then maybe some improved approaches with the GPS. And then similar situations going on with our noise working group. We're still actively planning to have the next meeting. One of the firms one of the people that I was working with at the firm who designs approaches is no longer with that company. And then I got an email bounce back from that company. So we're putting together some information on that. And then we had hoped to have somebody from the tower give a presentation or at least have some back and forth discussion with the group. And with some of the current federal changes, they're being scrutinized with what meetings they can attend and how. So working through that as well, but hopefully we can have them attend one of the meetings coming up in the future, if not the next one. And that's all I have for the director's report.
Commissioners, do you have any questions, comments? Commissioner
Yes,
Bowen?
I had a question regarding the noise working group on this kind of thing. Has there been any progress or update on the prospective change of turning out to sea before 6 a.m.?
Thank you, Commissioner Bowen. I've actually just reached out again to our air traffic control folks just to make sure that there are no issues with that, and we are making that big push literally as we speak. So if there are any challenges to that now with all of the federal changes going on, I will let you know, but I don't anticipate any.
Thank you for that update. And yeah, the noise working group has not been successful at arranging a meeting with the LA Center yet. So we're all pushing on the same problem. Thank you.
Vice Chair Maya? Did you have a
Yes,
question?
I did have a question. So I understand that the overlay issue is something that may be addressed with a NOTAM in the near term, and then I imagine it would be corrected the next time approach plates are updated.
So not the overlay issue, that's just
I'm sorry, not the overlay, the
VOR,
The VOR.
approach not being available at
not
night.
being available at
Yes.
night would be something
Correct,
that could be.
yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so then, do I understand correctly then, if the Gaviota VOR station on the hilltop is out of service, then approaches on 2.5 would not be available at any time, correct?
I would have to follow up with you on that one with what all of those implications are. I'm not
Yeah.
instrument rated, unfortunately, so I
Yeah.
don't know how all of those implications,
Yeah.
but I can find out some more.
Okay, I mean, we do still have the ILS runway 7
Correct.
for foggy weather.
Yes.
But with higher minimums and no available approach on 2.5. Okay, yeah, it sounds like we're in sort of a limbo phase here. Any idea how long it would take to get the NOTAM removed and have the approach plates updated? Would that happen with the next cycle, or would that happen a year from now?
So as far as the VOR approach,
Yeah.
the information I got from the tower manager is that it would be with the next cycle.
Okay,
Or
that's good.
That's what they're hoping for.
That's what
anyway.
they're hoping for. Okay, that's good. All right. Well, thanks for investigating all of that. I know there's a lot of GA pilots that are interested, but it also affects our commercial flyers and our passengers because it
And I would encourage, if anybody is inconvenienced by not being able to get in,
Yeah.
you can file, I think it's called an ASAP report with the FAA,
Mhm.
and that might also help to get that moved quicker.
Good. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Any public comment? Seeing none. Anybody? No. Going, gone. All right. I want to go back just for a brief moment. Council member, Caston has joined us. Do you have any updates from the city of Goleta?
Thank you. No, nothing to add. Goleta as well. It sends its regards.
Good in the good land. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Moving on to the consent calendar. Any commissioners have any questions or clarifications on the consent calendar?
I have a comment. I just want to put a shout out to Jennifer Shively of Dean Coffee. It seems like maybe 3 years ago she appeared before this group quite frustrated, and she was unhappy with the representation she had from the airport. And I just want to use that as an example that we heard her, and Director Hastert acted on that, and it may have taken a little bit of time, but I think major improvements were made. And it's just great to see an operator at our 6100 block of buildings to have an operator like her that fills a major need. I mean, even myself, I probably have a meeting at Dean Coffee once a month with someone from UCSB because it's so hard to park at UCSB, so easy to meet at Dean and do our business or our discussion. She's exactly the kind of tenant we want. And as we grow the Santa Barbara Airport UCSB Research Park, I would hope we could have more companies like her serving the public. So just a shout out to Ms. Shively, and she's an outstanding operator of that coffee shop. And when I did the math, realizing she opens at 6 in the morning, she operates till 3 p.m. I think the calculation was that she had to she had to sell, she had to have $148 per day just to pay her rent. And she's open 365 days a year, so just a shout out to her. So,
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, as a recovering caffeine addict, I do like seeing Dune there, but I'm not patronizing him anymore. I had a comment or a question about the lease for the flight school. I noticed that's for some spaces on the other side of the airport from their physical location. Does that mean there's nothing closer we could get them?
Unfortunately, that is the case. We are very strapped for space, so everything that is available to Above All is leased by Above All. There are some spaces close by with Atlantic Aviation, but currently utilized by Atlantic.
Okay, that's got to be terribly difficult for them, but okay, thank you.
Any public comment? All right. Call for a vote on this one. The consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent as
I'll
presented.
second.
Motion and seconded. Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Looks like it's unanimous. All right. We'll kick it back to Director Hastert here for item number 13.
Thank you, Chair Glazer. And this is not an item that we had to bring back as an administrative item. We could have easily put this on the consent agenda, but I will turn it over to John Feldhans to discuss the item, and I anticipate probably there's some questions that will come up, which is why we put it on the admin.
Thank you, Chris. Chair and commission members, long anticipated lease for the former Elephant Bar. Ben Schroeder in the back, he is the mastermind behind the Goleta spot. We are putting forward a 1-year lease term starting in April. The rent will start in July 1, so he can do some renovations to the inside and outside. He does have the potential, he's been in contact with the FBOs for the FBO redevelopment to potentially have a longer term lease with them. And just really, really excited to see that old building be brought back to life and brought back to what we could use, and hoping to have lunch over there. That'd be awesome. But really, that's all I had. If you have questions for Ben, he's willing to step up and speak. If you have questions about the restaurant, happy to answer any questions on the lease itself. So that's what it is.
Commissioners, any questions?
Questions for you. I remember that building is in pretty dilapidated state. We did put a lot of money into it number of years ago. Can he have it ready by July 1st, do you think?
He is optimistic that he's going to be able to pull it off for July. I don't know when he's looking at opening the restaurant, but that's when the rent is going to come in, is July. He could probably talk more about the opening if he chooses.
And then another question for you on that. I'm assuming this is a relatively short term, because with the FBO redevelopment, I believe that space needs to go to the FBO, doesn't it?
Yes, that building and this building is part of that East Side FBO RFP, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if it's appropriate, I was hoping maybe our potential future tenant might speak a little bit about the concept. I know the papers we've gotten basically say restaurant/public market. We'd all be excited to hear more about that.
Sure. Well, one of the ideas was we wanted to maintain the building. We're not planning on doing any changes to any walls. We're going to paint the same color, make sure it's just looks good on the outside, so to speak. If there's wood that needs to be replaced, it'll be replaced with same. The inside, well, stripped down, from its last adventures. Needs really paint and some furniture and some repair. Nothing major, and everything will be taken back to the condition that it was. From a concept, the idea is to have 5 different food trucks operating essentially to sell food. So there'll be a variety of different types of food, all Goleta-based companies that already have a following. The idea is also to feature local brewery, cider, sodas, different offerings that way. So the idea is to have a fast casual restaurant, something that the community could be proud of, and the idea is to decorate the space to have a sense of space. So when you're on the left side overlooking the airport, there will be a nod to the airport. When you're on the right-hand side, as you walk in, it'll be more towards, it'll look more of the coast, if that makes sense. And then in that recessed area, the idea is you'll be looking this direction or towards the mountains and the groves of Goleta. And we wanted to give a nod to that. I'm well aware also we're on Santa Barbara property technically, but we wanted it to be a spot for Goleta to have that type of thing. Did that answer the question?
Good, thank you.
Okay.
When you say food trucks, are you having, like, people who have food trucks have different, is it kind of like a public market kind of?
So everyone will order inside. The way that we picked the food trucks is that renovating the kitchen would have been very costly, and because we're looking at a short-term lease with the understanding that it will hopefully transfer to an FBO, which we feel comfortable with and understand that the airport comes first, the FBO comes second, and we're tertiary in our standing. We wanted to make sure that we didn't invest a lot into the build-out of the kitchen, and so we're going to use it as a commissary, meaning that the approved food truck will be parked outside, but no one will be ordering from the food truck. And so along that area there, people will order inside, the food will be brought in, and fast casual, they would pick it up from the counter.
Okay. Thanks.
What are the days? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
What days are you open? How many days do you think you could be open? What's the schedule? What do you look like?
The current plan is 7 days a week, 10 to 10. We don't want to be open past 10 p.m. I feel like that's a different thing. And the idea is to be able to offer the different food products at different times. So there will probably be some type of breakfast or brunch type of a thing, and then we'll offer different things throughout the day and close at 10. Maybe not everything will be offered every day. You know, if one of the providers decides they want to be closed on Monday, that's up to them. So.
I love the idea. I wish you luck with the concept. It sounds like promising. It seems like you've taken the challenges of the location and the building and the condition and risen to the occasion. So I'm excited for you. Kind of a idea you may have come across already, but I'm wondering if you've been in touch with either or both of the fixed base operators for some kind of agreement for fly-in pilots to come in and maybe reduced or no fee for parking if they visit your establishment, so that they it could become a fly-in destination while it's operating, especially given that it's probably only going to be here for a limited time. It could attract a significant amount of outsiders who choose to fly in, like the Catalina Airport has bison burgers that people fly in from all over the West for. So
That's a fabulous question. I can answer that yes, I am in contact with them.
Yeah.
I am under NDA, so I can't tell you anything else.
Okay, great. Well, if you haven't approached that, maybe you will. So
A fabulous suggestion.
Thank you, yeah.
I'm very excited about your business venture also, and it sounds like you really got it together, and I'll look forward to frequenting it as often as possible.
Looking forward to having you.
I'm in agreement as well. I was interested in your plan B when the bulldozers show up, and it seems like you've thought this through, especially with the food trucks and limiting your construction costs of the kitchen and interior improvements. So I'm optimistic you'll be very successful, and I'm certain you're probably already hunting for a new location in 2 years. So,
Well, it sounds like the FBO and the RFP process might have a location as a part of it.
yes,
So thank you.
I wish you well.
Thank you.
Pilots are always hungry.
Excellent. I hope they're thirsty as well. So lots of soda.
No, we used to have a lot of military pilots that would come in for lunch, and so that would, be another one. Just curious how that works with the ABC license. Is that then with the individual truck, and they're allowed to have people have a beer or anything?
No,
or-
so there's going to be, the Goleta spot is going to be the company. The other vendors are going to have exclusive use contracts with the Goleta spot. They're not subletters. They're not going to be, that gets messy very quickly.
Yeah.
They're going to each provide their own lane of service to the Goleta spot.
Okay.
And so the ABC license, which is type 47 on public property, needs to be approved obviously by the airport commission. We're hoping and counting on that as a part of it. But that goes to the Goleta spot, stays with the building, doesn't go anywhere else. It's for public. What's the word I'm looking at? And there's a really specific phrase there, but the idea is that it's for the public good. And so we are planning on offering local beer from Draftsman Ale Works, hard cider from Santa Barbara Cider, family wineries, those types of things. Along with, we're going to have a wide selection of non-alcoholic drinks as well, obviously. But the license is with the Goleta spot. The other vendors are providers, and so they're not going to be attached to the lease. They're not going to be responsible for. It's going to be a very clean transaction.
Great.
Did that answer the question?
It did.
Okay.
I think everyone's very excited, so thank you very much.
Yeah, equally excited. I'm wondering if there's a potential venue for live music in there as well.
Great question. We would like to have some entertainment. We're going to work really closely with the airport commission because we want to make sure it fits in the needs and the wants and the specifics of what it would be, what we would envision. And this is, I haven't talked specifically about this, but the idea would be that we would have non-ticketed events and live music, just somebody playing some music. Maybe hopefully some folks from UC Santa Barbara would like to have a place to perform. I also work with the Santa Barbara Bowl on the outreach committee. I'm very interested in having high schools and colleges come and perform, so it's a place for students. I think that we'd like to have some trivia nights and those types of things, but again, closed by 10. And this is not, we're not trying to pack the house, so to speak. So if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
I'm relieved to hear that too, because our previous operator started having a cabaret, and I think that one of our two regulators was unhappy with that, being so close to a fence with aviation right there. So happy to hear that.
Good. Yeah, the goal is to be a contributing member to this specific community, and to not make the newspaper unless it's good.
I think too, a place for groups like related to the airport that could have meetings there would be really helpful. Because there's not a lot of place, but if there's food and drinks, that would be great. Because there's a lot of small communities that meet regularly, and that would be a good spot too.
Yeah, that's the feedback. Good question, comment. So we've gotten that feedback quite a bit, and we're working on trying to incorporate that. We've been working closely also with John and Chris to make sure that if we're able to do something in that area to the left as you go past the restrooms, if you're familiar with the building, there's a space in there where we had counted actually in order to not have to monitor it with employees, because that's where it starts to, everything else is command and control around the space. We were thinking about starting off with that as storage. We've heard the request loud and clear, not only from the airport, but from FBOs and from a number of people in the community who really are looking for a space like that. We're working on a solution right now that would offer some type of audio video as well as space to set up should that be a need. And so we are working on that.
And then also, where would the food trucks be parked?
So if the kitchen is this side of the building, closest to us, my goal would be to have it as close to and as tucked away as possible.
Okay.
I'm not interested in any type of marketing or spectacle. I think people will find it on their own.
Yeah, thank you.
Good question.
Councilmember Captain.
Yeah, thank you. It sounds really interesting as a concept. I guess one is that being done other locations? Have you seen it done in that same manner?
No.
So
Where it gets complicated and where it's taken a lot of meetings with labor law attorneys is to make sure that we have the larger entity, and then we have suppliers to it. And so instead of having a checkout or point of sale for every single vendor, everything's going to be wholesale purchase through the main entity, and then that way we have one point of sale, so there's one line to stand in, or you can order from the table.
And they would get their food at the Goleta spot, not at the food trucks.
Correct. Yeah, I do not want traffic or a spectacle in the parking lot. I want it contained and
Oh, it's really cool.
easy peasy.
And are you using the same, I think you said 5 trucks, is it one consistent set of trucks, or are they varying, and some are, Tuesdays, Thursdays, it's this combination, et cetera?
And so the latter, and I think what ends up happening is we're going to pick 5 core, and with airport approval, if we decided we wanted to add maybe one other visiting person as a special occasion, or if it were the right event, if the airport wanted to have something like that, we could technically have someone else show up as a guest. But the goal is to have 5 separate, distinct suppliers, so Latin food, seafood, burgers and wings, Japanese sandwiches, that kind of thing. Hopefully pizza, long story there.
And the same truck over time?
Correct.
More or less.
They would be permitted through the county, and parked there, permanent fixture. The idea is to keep it stable and interesting. So.
Yeah. Okay, and I assume you'd probably have some kind of preference for locally based trucks?
They're all
and
locally
operators?
based.
They're all locally?
The concept was to bring together local companies that needed a spot to gather at, and so there are people that either we've worked with or I have known for a very long time. And so when you look at Draftsman Ale Works as a kind of a staple in Goleta and et cetera, like that was the concept.
Yeah. No, great, and that's very clever. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I wondered if you might be willing to just share for a moment some of your experience in this industry.
Sure. So I started the Santa Barbara Cider Company in Old Town Goleta. That was in 2017. So I've operated through, I was lucky enough to operate through the pandemic and learn some of those lessons. And the idea originally was to find a location instead of in Old Town directly, which has its own challenges. This was close enough, and we've taken a very long time to really feel out, is this the right fit for the airport, is the right fit for us? And so that's a large part of what my experience is running that company. We've gotten best of in the county 3 years in a row now. We work with the chamber, a number of things. So if that's helpful.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks.
I would like to comment, my trainer is a big customer of yours, and he's been talking about this for some time. And,
Okay.
and I have to say, I've attended his birthday party there a year ago,
Okay.
and it's very good cider. And I have
Good.
to tell you, the food truck, the Mexican food truck that had gluten-free options is a huge hit. Are you going to have that food truck available too?
You're talking about Alubia's Kitchen,
Yes.
an
right.
award-winning
Yes. Yes.
purveyor of Latin American food.
It's
and
excellent.
it just so happens that yes, they will be featured as our Latin American food offering with pupusas and burritos and nachos and a number of other delicious things that they
I'm going to
offer.
get in line right now.
There you
So,
go.
Okay.
You don't even have to wait in line. You can order from your table.
Yes.
I'll confess I was there just last Thursday.
Perfect. Good. Glad to hear it.
I think you're making us all hungry. Any other questions? Comments?
Okay.
Any public comment? No more speaker slips on this one? All right. Can call
Thank
for
you.
a vote on this one.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I think it's unanimous. Thank you. All right, and then at this time, we're going to call on Director Hastard to introduce number 14.
I think I'm going to pass this to Jonathan Abad, our business manager, to go over the second quarter mid-year financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Hastert, and good evening, Sir Chair Glacier and Airport Commission. Jonathan Abad here, business manager. I'm here to present the airport's second quarter. That's a mid-year financial review for the period of July through December 2024. And I want to start off, another record-breaking growth, 21.3% increase in July 2024 from the prior July. 137,000 passengers in July, highest monthly count ever, starting off the fiscal year. And at mid-year, we grew 15.3% over the last fiscal mid-year. And this is a visual of our growth. Last since 2020 there, you can see a kind of a seasonal ups and down, but you could clearly see the growth year over year, especially this past mid-year. And as a result, we have all major revenues up. Terminal revenues up 23%, commercial aviation up 10%, non-commercial aviation 6%, and commercial industrial up 1%. And starting with the terminal revenues, up 23%, you'll see parking's up by almost 31% there. We replaced SCADATA equipment with new TIBA equipment on all the 3 parking lots. That was last spring. And so that means no more equipment downtime. We have real-time parking availability monitoring through our website and lower overall cost. And last fall, we permanently moved all the terminal employees out of the overflow lot closer down to the terminal and making more space for paying customers and also reducing shuttle service costs. And about over $8 million in annual revenue. This is now the airport's single largest operating revenue source. And parking's really now key to the airport's fiscal sustainability, and that's why we're so focused on it. And in fact, in the next year, we have plans to move our overflow lot eventually closer to the terminal, further lowering cost and increasing revenue for that segment. Next line there, we got rental car up 6.42%. Under the other revenue, we have ground transportation, advertising, ATM, and TSA. That's up 36.61%. The ground transportation alone is up 45% from the prior mid-year. TSA rents 5%. Advertising's up 31%, and ATM 1% on that category. And then we have concessions, restaurants, and gift shop up 15% from the prior fiscal mid-year. Commercial aviation, we got building leases up 13.6%. We have since added Delta in this fiscal year. Landing fees only up 5%. That's because for new routes, we have a 1-year abatement on landing fees. We won't be collecting landing fees from Delta until about June this year. And others, we have remain overnight, freight, boarding fees up 10%, fuel fees up about 13.33%. Overall, it's up 10% there. Non-commercial aviation, we have building rent only grew about 2% there. That's because of the absence of Surf Air. And there was increase in landing activities, and the rate was also up. You see about 29% increase there. Fuel up about 6.27%. And the commercial industrial revenue up only 1%, primarily due to turnovers and temporary vacancies that driven by ongoing property improvements and redevelopment efforts. So looking at a pie of all our revenues, here, the airline-driven revenues, which is the terminal and commercial aviation, makes up about 63%, or 9.74 million at mid-year. Non-airline-driven revenues, such as general aviation and industrial, commercial industrial, at 37% of the pie, at about 5.68 million at mid-year. And overall, revenues are up 8.3%, and almost all the revenue categories are up, except for that miscellaneous. You see there about $500,000. That's coming from there's a one-time concessions COVID grant that we received last year. That it's just one time, and we didn't receive it this year. That's why it's showing down. But overall, you'll see all our revenues are up. And off to the expenses. We got salaries and benefits up to 13.85%. We've been pretty well staffed at this past mid-fiscal years compared to the prior one, plus increased cost, of course, and benefits and retirements and such. And then we got allocated cost of about 7.1% at mid-year. Materials, supplies and services up 19.4, almost $500,000. We've had some extraordinary repairs and such this year. That's kind of driving that cost. Under the special projects, up significantly. You'll see that's mainly due to the PFAS testing that's up this year, and everything else transfers out. That's mainly funding our capital improvement program. Just calling out the allocated costs out of the $3.9 million that we pay to the city for services. 47% of that is for vehicles, IT, insurances, so those regular allocated costs. And about 40%, about 1.58 million, is ARF cost at mid-year for the firefighting. 9%, about less than about a third of a million, or that's 8.35, 350,000. Engineering, and then we have additional IT support at about 140,000 at mid-year. So now for major accomplishments, starting off with the administration and properties. Our properties are fully staffed now as of December 2024. And we streamlined internal processes to improve efficiencies, implemented rate methodology for T-hangers, that's approved by the Airport Commission, secured approval for 17 new leases through the Airport Commission, successfully moved the terminal employee, like I mentioned, to a more convenient location, saving money and increasing the revenue there. And for marketing, they launched a dual-track strategic marketing campaign, hosted Alaskan Airlines executive visit as part of the Air Services Development Program, and organized the inaugural Passenger Appreciation Week to enhance customer service, held inaugural Girls in Aviation Day Advancing Education Program, installed the Moxie exhibit promoting community partnership and customer service, and achieved record-breaking advertising revenue through outreach and community partnership program. And for the facilities team, they repaired a critical generator radiator failure, completed crack sealant on runways and taxiways, certified a boiler, and conducted significant work on back unit's motor, installed new HVAC system on jet bridges, hangars 14 and 15, and a maintenance building, upgraded and repaired the escalator motors and brakes, purchased new backhoe with kick broom, replacing end-of-life equipment, and actually expecting about a 1-year ROI, so eliminate the need for renting that part of the equipment. He also installed 6 new EV charging stations across the facility, rebuilt the telehandler damaged during the flood, installed new infield lighting fixtures, part of the major capital investments. And for Operations Law Enforcement Division, he successfully restored R78, that's the airport's 3rd firefighting vehicle, to operating status. Fully implemented the TSA mandated aviation's workers screening program, enhancing security compliance. A completed recruitment for a 3rd airport's operations supervisor, backfilled 2 senior airport operations specialist position, and another operations supervisor. And they resolved all annual FAA certification discrepancies, maintaining compliance with federal regulations, and implemented body-worn cameras for airport police, improving accountability, transparency, and operational effectiveness. And lastly, we have the capital support team that hosted a General Western Aero Hangar public open house in September. They completed an airfield marking signage and lighting project. That's fairly funded project exceeding $5 million. Finalized the draft of the master plan update and the master plan drainage plan update. Updated the airport C5 map to reflect the current developments. Completed the design for the Carneros dredging project. Submitted a drafted coastal plan to the Coastal Commission. Conducted and completed biological studies at the Firestone Ditch and Goleta Slough Access Road. Published draft climate vulnerability assessment. Completed terminals, sidewalk improvement projects. Substantially completed the Southfield project. Submitted NEPA, CADEX for the terminal improvement program. Finalized phase 4 of the PFAS work plan as required by the RWQCB. That was driving the cost for our PFAS testing. And just these accomplishment reflects the airport's dedication to the operational excellence, sustainability, and strategic growth. And I'd like to end with some exciting news, in case you didn't already hear, from our marketing team that our SBA has been nominated for Best Small Airport in the 2025 Newsweek Reader's Choice Award. And with your help, we could top the list by casting your vote. And you could do that daily. You can go to the website or just search the Newsweek Reader's Choice Award Best Small Airport, and you could vote once per day throughout the voting period, and the voting is open until Thursday, April 10th at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And thank you very much. And I'm here for some questions if you have any.
So early and often and every day, and tell all your friends. Got it.
Yes, please.
And even multiple devices work.
Multiple devices. Good to know. Make sure that everyone knows that. Commissioners, any questions?
Well, this all looks great, so I hope you'll forgive me if I ask the following. I think 3 questions regarding really resiliency in the face of any unanticipated downturns. First question is on the capital transfers to the capital fund, which I see got budgeted $6.1 million. I'm curious, how much of that is committed or locked in already?
Oh, you mean like encumbered?
Encumbered in effect or locked in on the capital, transfers to capital.
Yeah, I don't have the exact amount, though. This is appropriated. I can't even guess at this point. Some of them will be carried over for encumbrance the following year, when we go to mid-year, we usually go with a contract, and that's encumbered. But on an annual budget basis, it could take a year, and sometimes things gets delayed.
If you look at the bigger picture, what you're asking for, when we look at the next 2 years' budget, all of that is looking to spend our FAA Airport Improvement Program grants, which we're still very hopeful are going to come through right now. And then we do have two major capital projects in the next couple of years. That's the long-term parking south that Jonathan mentioned. That one is just finishing up design. So if something were to change, we could hold off on doing that project, and that's a little over $5 million project. And then we also have the relocation of this building at about $1.7 million that ultimately could be held off a little bit because there's going to be a time period with the FBO redevelopment that they go through for planning and entitlements and all of that. So,
Okay, so there's potentially some cushion in there. And then your supply and services encumbrance now, 2.8. How much of that is expected to be realized this year? Is that a multi-year encumbrance or just this fiscal year encumbrance?
For the 2.8, that is actually what we've spent out of $2.7 million for the mid-year. That's what we've spent at mid-year.
On the encumbrance?
In the encumbrance side. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Are some of these
You're looking at this.
multi-year?
Yeah, these
encumbrances?
are, a lot of these are within a year. They're purchase orders, although there are some contracts in there, a couple of contracts that may span a couple of years, like in advertising and such. Although most of them we do budget annually, and we spend that whole in a year. I can't think of. We might have one that's budgeted for 3 years, but majority is within a year. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And then lastly, on salaries, you're a little bit under budget, what you pointed out is challenges in filling vacancies. I'm curious how things are going with those vacancies. If you were to fill them today, where would you be versus the budget?
I think we're doing pretty good with the vacancies. We're pretty full right now.
even some of the areas where we've had some challenges, including airport police, we are actually doing really well right now. Some of our new recruits have actually brought in other people who they're familiar with because it's so nice to work here at the airport. So I will say overall, we're doing very well with our recruitments, and probably won't see much of a change in the salaries because we're just about at full staffing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sounds good. Thanks for indulging me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a few questions. First off, I'm very happy to see our revenue picture is so nice. That's a good thing. Little detail questions on the facilities maintenance stuff there. We repaired a generator radiator for $350,000. That must be quite a generator.
Yes, and that included a rental of portable generator. While that radiator is being repaired, we can't have, no generator. So,
Commissioner Bowen, that was the main generator for the entire terminal. So it's that very large generator that you see on the south end of the terminal. They had to physically remove a part of a building to get to it. And then we had to, as Jonathan mentioned, rent a generator. And this isn't a small tow-behind generator. This is one that goes on like an 18-wheeler trailer. Very expensive for that period of time.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And then we installed some EV charging stations somewhere around. Are those mostly over at the terminal, and are they the modern DC fast charging ones?
they're level 2s, and they're throughout. I know we had a couple here in the admin building.
Most of them are actually to support airport operations. So we have some at the terminal. We're transitioning to electric vehicles with the city. So we have Ford Lightnings that you'll see with operations and airport police. And then maybe some other miscellaneous vehicles, I'm not sure as well. But so we have charging facilities that we put in at the facilities location here on this building and then over at the terminal.
Okay, so those are for airport vehicles, not the general public.
Correct, and we are still working on looking at EV charging options for the general public as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Over on capital support, we completed the biological studies at Firestone Ditch and Goleta Slough access roads. Is that in preparation for capital improvement?
So two separate projects. One is we have maintenance that we have to do near the slough, and then we also have contractors who have to come in, like the Mosquito and Vector Management District, to help keep the mosquito population down. And so in order to clear out some of those access roads, we have to do biological assessments before we just go in there and just, disturb some plant or animal that we shouldn't be disturbing. And then if you notice off of Firestone, we cleared up a lot of the oleander and trimmed back a lot. We had to do a biological assessment prior to that work being done as well.
Prior to taking out a poisonous introduced species?
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with the poisonous introduced species. It's more about what other plants or what other animals may be disturbed in that area as we do it, including nesting birds and things like that.
Thank you for educating me on that. One more education question. The last item, finalizing phase 4 of the PFAS. What is that acronym?
Perfluoral alkyl substances. So it's PFAS is the forever chemicals that you see on like nonstick cookware and laundry detergents, things like that. And so it is one of the ingredients that was formerly in the firefighting foam that we are required to use per the FAA. And so we have an investigation through the Regional Water Quality Control Board to see what impact PFAS has on the airport and in the groundwater related to historical use by the fire department for accidents, training, such. And some of that expense also is for the transition from the aqueous film forming foam, which has PFAS in it, to F3, which is fluorine-free foam, which does not have that PFAS in it. And so some of those costs we are keeping records of because there is the ability to receive federal funding for reimbursing the transition because it is required by the federal government. There isn't guidance yet from the FAA to submit for that, but we are keeping records of that, hopeful to get some reimbursement from it.
Okay. Thank you very much for explaining those things.
I've got a couple questions. First of all, I did vote in the Newsweek poll and will vote often. Okay, in this kind of a vote, we can do that. And I've encouraged others, like a hiking group and others, vote. So it's very important that we win that. We want to be in first place. And I'm following up on a conversation we had at the South Bay Santa Barbara Chamber of Commerce event. I met the number 2 person for SpaceX at that event. And I asked him, what can we do to help you? And I was surprised. He says, I need help with parking. So while we're talking about parking, realizing we've had $1 million increase in revenue there, his issue is not the cost of parking for the 24 applicants to join the company coming through this airport. He says it's my employees in Lompoc that work grueling hours that they're young, they're in their 20s still, recent college graduates returning to their hometowns for R&R. And he says there's no Uber from Lompoc. There isn't a reliable service to get them there, so they have to drive their cars and leave them here for 7 to 10, 14 days. He says, is there anything we can do to help these employees? This is not a reimbursable company cost. Have we ever thought about a subscription program that might be available?
So I can say that like the waterfront has monthly parking passes, things like that. In our current environment, with a lack of parking, we probably wouldn't want to entertain something like that. But as we switch over to long-term south, and if they were willing to, maybe find a way over to the terminal or something from the old economy lot, we would potentially have some flexibility. So we appreciate the comment, and we can look into some future uses. But currently, I think that we would be harming ourselves more than helping somebody else.
Well, I think I'll just be appreciative to see that we're following up. So they're becoming a very big customer, moving from 48 launches to nearly 100 in the next 12 months. So, and again, these are recent college grads with big student debt that, again, it's not reimbursable by SpaceX.
Doesn't sound like they'll have time to go home anytime soon.
Question. So there's a number of, on most of the building leases and the leases that you show, there's been a pretty good increase. Is that from a greater occupancy or an increase in rate?
In which category of terminal?
Either one of them. So there's a commercial aviation where you went up 13%. What was the other one?
Yeah, with the commercial aviation, let me see, commercial aviation, that would be the airline leases. Up 13%. Because we added Delta in June, so that's a factor. We also increased their lease rates by about 7.5%. So that's the other factors contributed to 13.6%.
So Delta was an add, and then an actual increase in rate. And then how about the operating revenue? The terminal lease, commercial aviation, are those
Yeah, the terminal, in the terminal, we have the parking. Parking is the huge one, as we
It's on
mentioned.
slide 10. Go to slide 10.
Oh, light number 10. And one more. Here we go.
Yeah, those.
Oh, yes, there we go. So, again, terminal leases, parking, so big driver to that, as well as the ground transportation.
And by ground transportation, a big part of that is those transportation network companies like Uber and
Okay.
Lyft.
And shuttles, and hotel shuttles too. And all. And the commercial aviation I mentioned to you, the building these. Non-commercial aviation is pretty stable.
Okay, those were the main ones, the
Sure.
bigger ones. So great, thank you.
Thanks.
I'm curious on slide 10 here, what was the miscellaneous revenue?
Yeah, that miscellaneous revenue is like a $437,000 one time. It's the last COVID grant that it's really a pass through. We receive it and we pass it to the airport terminal concessions. That includes rental cars and restaurants. It's part of it's the concession portion to help the concessions within the terminal from the old COVID grant.
And was that, is that still expected to be received, or that's?
That
okay,
was
so
that was the
item
last
was
of
just
it.
not removed, or
Yeah.
It was over budgeted.
Yeah, and that's why it's showing a 409, almost $500,000 reduction because it's done with.
Vice Chair Maya, did you have another question?
I just wanted to clarify, these numbers are mid-year numbers, so they're
Yes.
roughly half of what the total annual amount we expect for.
That
Yeah,
is correct.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, just a question. So I know we're at halftime and a football game. We kind of look at it this way, and it's pretty muddy. The business environment, it's obviously very muddy and cloudy, but if you're looking at your crystal ball, looking forward, that I'm sure is cloudy as well, giving you an out there. But looking at it, it seems like we have total operating expenses that exceed revenues by about $400,000. Where do you anticipate that landing at year end?
I think the majority of the big, like the terminal expenditure and all that, was in the first half of the year. We should, there shouldn't be any more bumps in the second half. It should be fairly close to the budget the second half, although in the end we're going to be a little over there. And we did go to the council and made some second quarter adjustment and increase in appropriations to support the additional spending that kind of unanticipated.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
And we might add too that we got that from savings in capital, and so it's really not additional. We're just shifting the savings we found in capital and shifting it to the overages in the operating.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Do we have any speaker slips or public comments? Seeing none. Pretty quiet crowd today. Can I get a motion? No motion needed. Okay, my bad. With that, I stand adjourned. Thank you very much. All right, 6:58.